Hello, Thrive Nation. I've got a very qualified expert and international guest on the show, Dr. Maria Theologides. She's Greek, so there's a supernatural connection between us because we are strong Hellenes and we just love researching, revealing, studying. We love just sharing and teaching. And I can see this very young lady who's got years and years of experience, who's a dental surgeon. She's qualified as a pediatric dental specialist. She's a Heal Your Life practitioner. She's a functional medicine practitioner. She's a touch for healing practitioner. She's a biological dentist. This very beautiful young lady in front of me is going to share her knowledge on biological dentistry. We're going to focus on children in terms of the oral microbiome, on dental health, what you can be doing as parents to help ensure that the health of your children starts in the mouth and starts in the microbiome and starts well with good foundation. So welcome to the show, Dr. Maria.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Maria, give us a short, quick backstory in terms of how you've got all these qualifications, how you integrate them with your patients, and why are you so passionate about sort of, upskilling yourself and teaching and sharing with others?
I think bottom line, it comes down to I love sharing with people because I genuinely believe everything is connected. And where medicine has failed is that it became specialized and therefore it became fragmented. And by fragmenting medicine, it meant we no longer looked at the person as a whole. So the minute you stop looking at the person as a whole, then you focus in one area only and you don't understand how they're all interlinked. And that's the most important thing. And for children in particular, because they have this incredible ability to heal, it makes me so passionate to be able to speak to moms, get in early, so that we can ensure that they're healthy for life. So that's pretty much, my background. Just I love kids. I love working with them, their energy, everything about them. And then just from there, wanting to keep learning, keep understanding, how we function as human beings and our innate ability to self-heal. And yeah, so that's pretty much in a nutshell everything I'm about. Yeah.
Now, biological dentistry in South Africa is in its infancy. So in your words, what is biological dentistry?
All right. So for most people, they've started to understand the concept of functional medicine and going back to root cause. And biological dentistry is pretty much almost the identical thing. It's looking at root cause, taking the whole body into account. So it's not about, filling gaps or just cleaning up the mouth, but literally understanding its impact on the entire body and vice versa. So if you're taking a drug, how it will manifest in the mouth. If you, you've got as you spoke, the oral microbiome that's off in the mouth, what impact that's going to have in the body. If you've got inflammation in a part of the mouth, it means you're going to have inflammation elsewhere downstream. So it's pretty much that understanding that everything is interlinked, and to have health, a lot of people will spend a lot of money on their health. They'll, invest in supplements, they'll see specialists, really good doctors, they move from doctor to doctor, and they get to a point and then nothing shifts. And the best way I explain it is, you've got this bucket and you're trying to fill it with water, with all your supplements, all the doctors, all the good eating, and you've got nice holes at the bottom of your bucket. And very often those holes are actually in your mouth. And so unless you plug those holes, you're going to keep throwing empty, money into this bucket, and it's just going to be coming out the bottom. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what, I think what biological dentistry is and why it is so important in people's health.
So let's take a prime example. A patient comes to see you, they're struggling with their health, their systemic health, they've heard about Dr. Maria, they've got a lot of issues, maybe they've got autoimmune issues, maybe they're struggling with chronic fatigue, they're just really not in a good space. Just give us the process and the protocol of what you do, how you assess and how you manage these patients generally.
All right, so I'm going to start off with the first thing we do is we actually have about a 20-page intake form. So before patients have arrived, they have to have filled the form, they have to have sent it to us. I spend sometimes an hour to an hour and a half before I see the patient going through their form. It has everything in it, literally from their diet to how much sleep they're getting, how much they're exposed to EMF, so their Wi-Fi setup, where the closest 5G tower, all of those things. the entire history of medical wise, and then obviously dentally what's been going on with them. And then very specifically, we'll ask questions like, do you have amalgam fillings in your mouth? How many? Do you have root canals in your mouth? Have you had teeth extracted? Have you had orthodontics? Really, really important question. Have you had teeth removed when you had orthodontics? Are you a grinder? Are you a mouth breather? Because all of that has an impact on general health. So that's really where already it begins before I've even met the person. The intake form gives me a very intimate idea of what the person's about. And then again, we'll spend an hour to an hour and a half with the patient, getting a good medical history, then a dental history, and very often a CBCT scan, full 3D scan, so we get an idea of what's going on in the jaws. So yeah, that's pretty much.
Did you say you're a dentist, Dr. Maria? That doesn't sound like the story or the narrative that dental practitioners follow, and it's incredible how you've gone very holistic, looked at root causes, and these play a huge role. We know the electromagnetic radiation out there has a significant role, especially if you've got metal in your mouth and you're just looking at it from all angles. So obviously, are the dentists that you're working with or you're sharing with the dental fraternity open to hearing your lectures, about these things? And where are we sitting in South Africa?
Resistance. That's all I'm going to say. Resistance. We started the South African Academy of Biological Practitioners in South Africa, and so basically the background to that was I'm the ambassador for the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology for the continent of Africa. And, I'd done all the training and was connecting with so many colleagues everywhere in the world. And we were that's not happening in South Africa. We need to start an academy where we train dentists and doctors to be more aware of the link, and then how to be a biological dentist. And we approached the South African Dental Association and the Health Professionals Council on exactly this, starting this training, having it open to all dentists. And also because South Africa had actually signed the Minamata Treaty, which agreed from last year already that we were going to pretty much phase out mercury. And the Health Professionals Council knew nothing about this. The Dental Association knew nothing about this. And the more we were trying to, teach them and inform them, the more resistance we were finding. To the point where I've had professors from different universities send me really obnoxious letters. I've had death threats. I've had all sorts of things, completely ridiculous, because all I want to do is share knowledge on what the impact is of just what we do in the mouth on the whole body. And people, dentists as a whole, I think are, they've been trained in a particular way. Universities are still training students to place amalgam, which is beyond me. There's no training about, the impact of having a root canal treated tooth on the body, the energy systems. None of that is coming up. So it's very frustrating, because it kind of feels sometimes that you're on this lone road and not at all supported. But I think, we realized very early that instead of trying to go from the top down to create the change we wanted, we would do it the other way around. Let people, learn and become enthusiastic, so they start asking the questions to their dentists. What's the story with amalgam? What's the story with root canals? And by creating pressure, hopefully create the change that we're hoping for. So let's see.
Good. We wish you well, and we're going to get behind you and go winning the sales and promote you as best as we can. But I think you've piqued the interest of many of the audience or the viewers. What is the problem with amalgams?
Whoa, like, how do I say, what's the good thing with amalgams? So I think a few problems. The one would be, and maybe if you don't mind, I'll screen share.
Yes, go for it.
And I'll sort of speed forward. Okay, let's just, go here. Okay, can you see my screen? There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to go back into this point, just understanding, of late, and I'm really excited, even the most conventional allopathic doctor has understood the role of the gut and the microbiome. So that already for me is excitement, because that wasn't the case a few years ago. But you know, when people just stop and think about the fact that your mouth is part of your gut, it's the opening, and because of that, it's going to obviously have an impact on the body, whatever goes on in the mouth. And it's an open system, which means it's continuously influenced by, you know, what you put in, what you're doing with it. And we've got more control over it than we have in our gut. You can't oil pull your gut, you know, which would be great if you could, but you can't. So it's really, really important to understand that. And I think from the cardiologists and that, they'll talk about, you know, the understanding if there's gum disease, or you know, if a patient's diabetic and they're a little bit more compromised, then their gums won't be right, and then therefore they, you know, maybe there's a link to heart disease or strokes. So that was the next step, which was, okay, great, we're progressing a little bit. But I think for a lot of people, when we talk about biological dentistry, the impression is that it's all about amalgams and only about amalgams. And the funny thing is that with our international colleagues, you know, when I talk about amalgams, they go, yes, but it's old. Nobody's doing amalgams anymore. And what are you talking about? We're still placing them in South Africa. So it is a big part of it. And the whole thing with amalgams is that it's 50% mercury. You know, and if you look at the Minamata disaster that happened in Japan, when you know, the chemical got into the water, the people that were eating the fish and got the mercury into their bodies, they were manifesting symptoms pretty much, I would say, like extreme, like Parkinson's on steroids. They were severe tremors. They couldn't even hold onto anything because there'd be so much shaking. And because it was a neurotoxin, and they realized, gosh, this is a problem. And it was an intense form because they got it in their water. But looking at amalgams within the mouth, I mean, we're sitting with pretty much this continuous vapor that's leaching into the body. And if you've got an optimal functioning body, you're going to get rid of, excrete 60% of this, but you're still going to retain 40% of this in your cells, especially in the nervous system. And if you're a little bit more compromised, and as time progresses, you're going to obviously excrete less and less and less and build up more and more and more. And there's no ways that your body just gets rid of it. You literally got to go in there and chelate it out, you know, show it the door, escort it out. So that's the concern with amalgams. And I'm going to go one step further and say, an even more serious problem with amalgams is that when people get smart and they do their reading, and then they go to their dentist and they ask for the amalgams to be removed, the problem is that it's not removed safely. And that's far worse than if you've just left them alone. So
Wow.
There's going to be a message there. I'm going to say, you know what? If your dentist isn't biologically accredited, and we know all the guys that are in South Africa, so you can always just check with us as the academy, then rather don't touch them. Then go in and take them out, because if it's not done correctly, you're going to see a dramatic increase of heavy metals, from mercury to silver to aluminium increase.
Fantastic. And so people go to your website to find out if the dentist is biological accredited, and you've got this academy, and that's very important. And then you've certified and validated that they've had the training.
Full training. I mean, it's quite an intense training. It's understanding mercury down to the T as the first module. It's understanding its impact on the body, how it manifests, how to remove it safely. There's a practical component to that. You know, how to help detox, you know, the body. So if you're not working with a functional medicine practitioner, that you're able to have the basics as to how to help detox. And then the second module, becoming a biological dentist, is all about the infections within the jaw, which I'll mention now. Yeah. So it's like I said, amalgams are tip of the iceberg. Smart removals, removing them correctly, and I'll show you a picture just now of how we actually remove them. Then what do you place in there? Because a lot of guys are removing the amalgams and placing conventional composites, and those have got they're filled with aluminium and BPA. So that's a concern too. Like, what is the guy placing in your mouth in place of your amalgams? And then detoxing it out of the body, because it's stored there. So just by removing them, your body's not going to naturally get rid of all the the mercury in it. Infected root canals being another part of biological dentistry. I'm just going to run through this. Periodontal disease, osteonecrotic areas, or what we call cavitation areas, which I'll touch on here shortly. Just chronic inflammation in the mouth equals inflammation in the body. Candida. I think, something I'm very anal about is like the whole role of sugar. I think we consume far too much sugar. And I'm sure you agree, you just see everything's infested with sugar. And it's so hard to get people to understand that's overload. It's too much. And it's not just, your teeth are going to get decayed. It's your whole body is, you're fueling inflammation in the body. And just all of this and what the impact is on your general health. And that's pretty much a small part of, what is, biological dentistry as such.
So for those that are listening, sorry to interrupt, but for those who are listening, you can go onto YouTube. Dr. Maria's got some incredible slides over here. I just want you to go back to that slide with the ice, because I think it's important. We're going to jump into inflammation, but let's talk about, because a lot of parents will be thinking about fluoride. I think this is something that we've had at least 5 dental practitioners on the show. We've had cardiologists on the show speaking about a lot of these topics, and we'll put the links to the show notes. But let's talk about these areas like the osteonecrotic areas, the role of fluoride, the role of periodontitis, and inflammation in the body generally.
So, fluoride is one of those that for me is very frustrating, that, we know it doesn't have an impact on, or a positive impact on the body. We know that. All the research shows that. We know that it doesn't per se stop decay. So to put it in, so it's great if you're going to use it in your toothpaste. If you want to use it, that's fine. If your top can really rinse well, get rid of it, fine. Use it if you're obsessed with it. I'm not a massive fan. But the problem is putting it into our drinking water, which we have. All our water in South Africa has got fluoride in it. And the problem with that is, as with any drug, you're not measuring it out according to the person's weight, according to their age, like you would do with any drug. If you're given a script, well, we take into account what is your age, what is your weight, what are we trying to achieve with it? Whereas you put a drug, and this is, please get me straight on this is a drug or a chemical. Maybe it's even better, chemical that we're putting into our water. It's not there to clean our water. It's not there to do anything except supposedly decrease decay in third world countries. And it doesn't do that, because it goes into the body. It doesn't have a homing device for your teeth and go, okay, well, cool, I'm going to just move to the teeth and make sure they're super strong. It pretty much goes across the body, and in particular the pineal gland in the brain, which for me is massive. We want to be sharp. We want to be lateral thinking. We want our kids to have the best. And in this world, if you can't lateral think, if you can't think out of the box, if you can't use your basic intuitiveness, then you're in trouble. And for me, without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, it's a crime to put fluoride in water.
Okay. So what does that fluoride in toothpaste do to the oral microbiome? Because I think that's very, very important in looking at the pellicle, and knowing the pellicle is so important. As this transparent neck that goes over the teeth is something that we've done in our families. We don't use fluoride at all. We're quite specific about that. What are your thoughts about that?
100% agree. I think, a lot of parents will ask me, they say the pediatrician said, the child's mouth's going to be a mess because they're not using a toothpaste with fluoride. On the contrary, it really isn't about fluoride or about toothpaste. It's all about brushing technique. It's as simple as that. You've got to get in there and brush. And for me, the best toothpaste is probably just to take coconut oil, flavor it with an essential oil that your child will like the smell of, or you'll like the smell of. At the end of the day, it's a very personal taste. If you want a little bit of grittiness, put some bicarb in, whatever it is, and just use that as a basic, and you're not killing anything off. If your child swallows it, there's no negative to that. So for me, that makes, sorry, I'm bumping on my computers here. It makes a lot more sense to just keep it as natural as possible. We live in a toxic world where there's so much from already within the womb, our babies are bombarded with so many chemicals. So I don't see the logic on adding to that, especially if your baby is bottle fed. You're looking at your average baby drinking 5, 6, 7, 8 bottles of formula that's been mixed with tap water. And you kind of go, gosh, how much fluoride has this tiny little body taken in? And that's where I'll start becoming really concerned, about the way forward.
Okay, let's jump to root canals. In the very expert opinion of Dr. Maria, is there any place or any role for root canals in today's time?
Okay, so is there a place for it? There is definitely a place for it. Yeah. So say, for example, let's take away inflammation. Okay, and this is just, I'm going to bypass all this, just inflammation connected. So if you look at your root canal system, and you need to understand, this is like a highway a super highway with, turnoffs this way and turnoffs that way. And it's so complicated. And we haven't got an idea of how many little, like off ramps they are coming off your average, root canal. And you need to understand, this is within the tooth, you have a tunnel, and in this comes your blood vessels and your nerve tissue. And that's then connected, they're connected to each other, connects, if you look at your face, to your whole face, and then into your body. So anything that goes on within the mouth, within the root system, as per se, is going to translate into going into the body. Is there a place for it? I think the place for it is if you've fallen and you've knocked your tooth and broken it in half and your nerve is exposed, you get to your dentist fairly quickly and they sort that out. So there's no bacteria per se within the nerve. It's not like it's been eating away over time. Because the problem with root canal, just so I can explain, is that so bacteria has gotten into the nerve chamber. Slowly, it's killing off the nerve. It starts off with inflammation, so you have on-off pain, and then it kills off the nerve. The problem is most people wait until it's too late, either out of fear of their dentist, or they're just kind of leaving it, hoping it's going away. By the time they get to the dentist, they've usually done the thing, I didn't sleep at all last night. I had one of those nights, or the last 3 nights, or, anti-inflammatories aren't touching side. By then, you know that you've got not only a dead body in the house, so to speak, it's necrotic, but you've got bacteria that's now infiltrated into the surrounding bone. So when your dentist takes an x-ray, there's usually a little halo that he goes, oh, you've got an abscess, boom, okay, here we go. So what does he do? He goes in, and then where you see this red in the picture here, so he takes out the nerve tissue from the canals, but he hasn't addressed all the bacteria that's gone into the surrounding bone. And then he plugs it all up really, really quickly. He disinfects it with a bit of Moltons or whatever the disinfectant is he chooses to use. And he hasn't addressed the surrounding bone that's got bacteria in, or any of the side roads that have got bacteria in. And then what he's done is he's plugged a little volcano. So now there's pressure building, and the only way it's going to go is outwards towards the bone. So the bacteria continues to eat in the bone. More importantly, what it means is you've got ADT, the police force, the Navy, the Army, they're all sitting there 24/7 manning this area where you've got, this problem, these bacteria, because these are the bad guys. So instead of your immune system, being on reserve, and then they called up because something's going on, they're on duty 24/7. So when something does come around, they're not able to jump to it as quickly as they could. Or, a typical thing is you've got cells mutating all day within the body, all the time in the body. And instead of the immune system going, oh, we've got a mutated guy, guys, remove the guy, we don't want him, mass producing. Eventually they get to the point and they go, oh, you know what, we're exhausted. Just let the guy, sit there, the mutated cell. And that's how we land up with cancer. So when we talk about like the link between, root canals and, for example, breast cancer or whatever it is, this is what we're talking about, is that the body was so immunocompromised, sitting here all day manning this infection, that it didn't take care of what it should have. And that's why there's so many of these links. So where do we do this? Where we don't have an existing infection. then yes, you do that. If it's a front tooth, because your option is to take out teeth, your other option. The problem with that is you start removing all the teeth. Now you create a different set of dynamics and a different set of problems. So yeah, you have to choose carefully.
Dr. Maria, if
yes.
I mean, the mouth has just got so much bacteria, you don't know, even if you break your tooth, you go to the dentist the next day, the dentist maybe doesn't have time to look at an HSCRP, what inflammation you've got. You might have a systemic infection. There's so many variables. You're running out of time. You plug that tooth, and you just don't know 5 years, 10 years later what happens if there any sort of bacteria that are caught in the body. And I think, from what I understand, root canals are probably the only procedure where you leave some dead tissue there, or plug up something that might have some bacteria.
So look, I mean, we've got in that situation where you did fall and you broke your tooth and now your nerve's exposed, right? There are materials that we can use, and we do have laser, and we do have ozone. All these now are part of like your average biological dentist, as part of everything that he uses on a daily basis. So in that situation, making sure that the bad guys didn't get in is a lot easier. Or if they got in, that you've got them under control. So the immune system, because remember, our immune system, though, if there's just a bit of bacteria, can take care of it. It's where it's been sitting there that it becomes an issue.
Okay.
So in that case, I can't say in every situation remove a tooth, because that's not at all the situation. And also, human beings, we attach to our teeth. So it's not always easy to, tell people, okay, well, I'm very sorry, we have to take out your teeth. I mean, every time I have to tell a patient, sorry, we have to remove a teeth, I start to do what I call Michael Jackson walk. I start to backpedal, because I get myself so anxious that I'm about to tell the patient they're about to lose a tooth.
Yeah.
So, I take it very, very seriously. So you have to take it all into account. If a patient's at all compromised in any way, we see a lot of MS patients, a lot of dementia patients, a lot of cancer patients. In those patients, it's really not an option. Those teeth should ideally come out if they're root canal treated. And I think, this for a lot of people that have heard of Dr. Price, I think it's all about that. He showed, sadly, his son passed away of a heart attack, and he was quite young, shortly after he had a root canal treatment done. And Dr. Price just couldn't get past the idea that possibly they were related. So, I mean, it sounds really warped, but he extracted the root canal treated teeth from his son who had passed away, and he sliced it into really thin slices, and then he put these root fragments into rabbits, and every single one, 100% of the rabbits, actually landed up having heart disease and passing away. And it was dramatic. And he started doing it, with patients with, like Alzheimer's or atherosclerosis or whatever it was, where they had, root canal treatment in that patient, that he then removed. Patient got better, and then he would look at this. So I think that has something to say, because, like I said to you just now, the problem with dentistry is dentists will take a 2D X-ray, and sometimes not even a periodic, or the wider panelips. And all you're looking at is, oh, there's a little bit of a gray, the area there, let's just plug it in, it's all good. But that's what it actually looks like. Sure. It's a 3D situation where the bacteria has gone out and they've eaten the bone away. And you can imagine the amount of effort that that takes place for an immune system to keep this under control, not to let that bacteria go into the body through the bloodstream, it's a big story. So you understand why the immune system becomes compromised and tired.
Yeah. Let me stop you there, because I've got 4 cavitational osteonecroses that have to be dealt with. My biological dentist has done a cone beam. I'm just in a place, obviously there's financial considerations. I am going to do it, but it seems like if you just pull a tooth and you pull your wisdom teeth out, or even if I've only had 2 wisdoms pulled out, and the other 2 areas where the wisdoms were, but didn't develop, still showed cavitational osteonecrosis. Now, how important, and it's a brilliant slide here, and I really recommend those that are listening, go into YouTube and check out the slide presentation. Dr. Maria, I'm really just inspired by your calling and just your passion and your courage. We need people like you to stand strong. But so what do we do? Here's Steve Stabs, never missed a single day's work in 23 years, watches his labs, does all the testing, all the data, all the sleep, the organic acid test, looks at all the process, not showing any signs of inflammation at all. But he's got these, cavitational osteonecrosis. What does he do, and how important is that?
Oh gosh, really important. And for me, I truly believe prevention is better than cure. It's as simple as that. Like you don't want to wait till let me put it differently. I believe that we all have these spiritual wake-up calls, and they start as subtle little things, you're not feeling good every now and then, or this keeps showing up, and people just ignore stuff. And this is why, again, I go back to that intuitiveness that's so important. You listen to your body. So the problem is, most people, by the time they get to us, and typically in our practice, they've been diagnosed with something dramatic. We have patients that are terminal. We are their last stop, their last hope, sense of hope. And it's really sad, because these areas have been sitting there for 20, 30 years sometimes, and they're being missed over and over and over again, because nobody's actually teaching, not even maxillofacial surgeons, to go and look for these areas, which is a real concern for me. And sometimes, this is the actual bone. You can see on top it's closed, so the gum is healthy on top, but underneath it's like a mush of necrosis. And you might not even have pain in this area, and this is part of the problem. So that's why in the history taking, the intake form is so important to understand. Well, have teeth been removed? Did you have wisdom teeth? How were they removed? Were they, in your mouth, partially erupted? Because that's your biggest threat. When a tooth is a little bit erupted, just has opening into the gum. So it continuously has an opening for bugs to get in. And, dentists will go, no, just leave it there. If it's not bothering you, it's okay. But unfortunately, it's developing this infection over and over. And then worse than that, eventually it gets removed. And the process of removing in dentistry is literally go in, take the tooth out, close up. Biological, dentistry is a very different situation. You look at that, on the screen, a picture on the screen where you've got this mush of necrotic bone. You've got to go in there and totally clear that area out. Sometimes it's you land up removing a lot of necrotic bone to get to healthy bone. Then we make use of ozone, so it's infiltrating into the surrounding bone. You make use of laser, so it's beaming across into the bone, making sure you've killed off all bacteria. And then the most important thing, in my opinion, we draw blood at the beginning of the session, spin it out, get PRF, PRP. This literally, it separates what I call the healing tissue from your fluid. And then we pack that healing tissue back into the socket once you've cleaned it and sterilized it and the whole thing, and close it up. So the body now recognizes it as its own. So the bone grows back into that beautifully without leaving another void that you'd start again with the whole process over again. And it's all about, sometimes it's just that, if you say on the contraceptive pill, or there was a lot of local anesthetic placed in the area when the tooth was removed, that vasoconstricted, so when there wasn't blood coming in, or people smoke afterwards, whatever it is, it just doesn't heal the way it should. But it gives opportunity, and I say it's almost like you've got empty land, and that allows literally squatters to come in and make it a home. And that's your situation, unfortunately, here within the bone of having necrosis.
Now, the only way you can really see this is to do a 3D cone beam scan or 3D X-ray. And is that become conventional practice with dental surgeons and maxillofacials and periodontists?
No, sadly not. And I think it's an expensive machine, and I think that's become part of the problem. So most guys do not have it as in their rooms. But even more important, even if they have it, for say they place implants or whatever the case is, they still don't know what to be looking for. They won't look for the subtle, obvious things like, how thin is there actually bone at the top or just below the gum, or is it actually sitting wide open on top? Is there, you have to look at what's the bone density like across that area where maybe a tooth was removed orthodontically or whatever the case is.
Fantastic. So let's, I think this is a good slide to go through now that you've turned it and possibly.
Yeah, sorry. So this is typically what we see, where you've had wisdom teeth removed. How often are we actually finding what's commonly known as cavitation areas as opposed to osteonecrotic areas? But cavitation areas are like 88% of cases of wisdom teeth. Molars are 70 to 80%. And just generally, you look at it will range anything from 50 to say 88%. I mean, it's really something to stop and think about. How well are we removing teeth? Is your average dentist actually even looking at removing the infection sitting underneath the tooth, which unfortunately is not the case at all.
Yeah, on this slide, if you go to YouTube, is the research by Dr. Thomas Levy and Hal Huggins, and we had Dr. Thomas Levy on the show, and how important it was for him that the studies he's done from a cardiovascular disease point of view, 100% of many of the sample groups that he looked at had oral anaerobes in the cardiovascular vessels. And so he just showed that these bugs or this bacteria, for those that are listening out there, ends up in the heart vessels and causes significant cardiovascular disease. And in fact, his book, I think it's called it's on my bookshelf, gone blank, but I think The Hidden Truth talks about how most cardiovascular disease and cancers are related to your teeth health, periodontitis, apical periodontitis, and the sort. So very interesting and fascinating. I know there's a lot to do here. Let's go through this slide, and then Dr. Maria, we're going to ask you about your dental sort of program, whether you floss or not. I've moved away from flossing, and I use a water flosser with hydrogen peroxide in. I don't use fluoride. My brushing technique has changed significantly. And then for those listening, hopefully in the new year, we can get Dr. Maria back on to talk about children's health and what's happening with orthodontics and breathing techniques. We've got many shows on how to breathe nasally, and Patrick McEwen and Niraj Naik, and how important nasal breathing is, and breathing exercises for children, and the formation of the maxilla, the mandible, the articulations, and those things. So, Dr. Maria's time is very precious. She runs a very busy practice. There's a lot of lecturing. So we'll look at it at the new year, but let's run through this slide and then your own oral health.
Okay, so the reason I put this slide on is just, understanding the whole concept of metals within the body. And it's not about, the amalgams that are just an issue, per se, mercury. It's the fact that it's made up a whole lot of different metals. You've got silver, you've got aluminum, you've got mercury. Then you've got, you go and you have it removed and you put a composite, and that's now also filled with aluminum and all sorts of stuff. Then you have gold in the mouth, and you've got, porcelain veneered crowns, which have got steel in them. And then on top of that, you add, with youngsters, body jewelry, to put it mildly. So, tongue rings, nose rings, earrings, the whole thing. And the concern here is then you go and you stick a cell phone next to your head. And literally what you're doing is you're becoming a transmitter with all this metal in your head. And I get really, really upset when I see moms hand the phones over to children and they sit with them. I mean, it really, really upsets me. And now with 5G being rolled out, it's even a bigger concern, because you are not now only a receiver, but you're a transmitter. And so we receiving and transmitting all day. And the more metal we have, in our body and in our head in particular, the bigger concern it is and an impact on our health. So, and when I spoke earlier about, how do we remove amalgam? Well, this is how we remove amalgam, like literally covered to the T, because it's understanding that it's a vapor, and we don't want it to get in any way into the body, because then your body's going to really battle to actively get it out there. You're going to have to go and chelate, and it's a process of years and months. And my own routine, just to go into it, I'm pretty much like you. I don't do the fluoride thing. I use an aqua flosser too, hydrogen peroxide as well. I do oil pulling. I think that's really, really important. And I think it's about, making sure that obviously I don't have metals in my mouth. So that's important, because, if you're going to go for a clean, even to your dentist, and you've got metal in your mouth, that's also going to release like mercury into the body. People read about the heavy metals, and then they start all sorts of supplements, and they've still got metals in their mouth, and that's disastrous. Or they're using activated charcoal to as in their toothpaste, because it's going to make their teeth whiter, or whatever the case is, and not taking into account the full picture. So I think that's important it's very individualized as to what routine to use.
What's the danger with flossing? I've spoken to a lot of dental practitioners now in the biological space. What's the danger with traditional flossing?
I think the concern with traditional flossing is that you're sitting with, most people don't know how to floss properly, so they go in there with a vengeance. They'll end up slashing their gums open, introducing bacteria into the body officially, so to speak. Instead of keeping, you kind of think of the gums around the tooth as a almost like as a collar, or a cuff around your hand, and you should pretty much only have 0 to say 2 millimeters worth of a gap there. For most people, that starts to open up, and the way people tend to floss is to open up a bit further, and then you get bacteria infiltrating lower and lower down into the tooth, from there into the system. I think it's one of those things. Get yourself an aqua flosser. You can't do damage with an aqua floss. It's as simple as that. They sell them on Take-A-Lot. There's 7, 8 different types. It's really simple. The whole family can use it. It's lots of fun. You do it in the bath with your kids, because it's quite messy with children, and it can be a lot of fun. I think it's the way to go.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
Tongue health, and do you do tongue scraping, or do you use the water flosser on your tongue? And how important is the tongue with regards to oral health?
Okay, so obviously we've got a generation of very sensory children. So that's a very personal thing, with kids, as to how do you go about cleaning tongues. I think the easiest way for most is just using your toothbrush and literally scraping down and away. And also the same with, I joke around with all my pediatric patients, and I say, Jerry the germ's really smart. He sees you coming with that toothbrush, so he jumps onto your gums, waits for you to finish doing your teeth, and then onto your tongue, and then he jumps back on again. And it's exactly that, just getting remembering first of all to stand in front of a mirror and consciously brush, where you're brushing teeth and gums, small circular motions. Even if you've got an electric toothbrush, I genuinely believe you need to be still motioning, teeth and gums, tongue as well. Because for most of us, I think what happens, you put your toothbrush in your mouth, and then you start making the bed, opening curtains, and the toothbrush is just sitting there. It's not like you're actually doing anything with it. And you kind of think, oh, well, it's been there for 5 minutes, and you spit out. So I think it's about standing there and literally going, there's 4 surfaces around the tooth, basically, or 5 surfaces. I need to get all around the tooth, and then remember that if I'm not flossing now, I've got to floss tonight, because that bacteria is sitting between the teeth, and that's, aqua flossing, I need to clean that out as well. So it's just, basically get around the tooth, get everywhere on the tooth, make sure you're doing a good job.
Right. So how many times are you aqua flossing? How many times are you brushing? Is it after every meal? Is it after every time you eat? I mean, give us a bit of detail.
So let me tell you something that's like a real something that I feel very passionate about, and I try and tell pediatricians, and nobody's listening. So between the 18 and 24 months old, right, we have a window period that is specifically open to bacteria that cause tooth decay. If you pick it up from your mom, your dad, your granny, whoever is involved in your life in that period, then you have it for life. If you don't pick it up, then you're always at an advantage. How do we pick it up? Basic things that happens a lot during that 18 to 24 month age group. I lick the ice cream, I give it to you. I taste the food, I give it to you. So looking at that, if you've picked up that bacteria, then your brushing regimen or your oral hygiene needs to be a lot stricter. All right. So in my case, I have parents and grandparents who all have had tremendous teeth decay. We have that bacteria. It was definitely transmitted by my granny who used to feed us. So, here we are. I know for a fact. So the best way to test it, so people will go, well, how will I know? Well, either you've got a lot of decay in your past. People will go, no, I got it all when I was a teenager, but you got them. That's the point. So the way to test it is to literally brush your teeth, have something to eat where you've possibly has a little, like a fruit, which is a bit of sugar, and then run your tongue against your teeth. If you've got a nice gloss feeling, sharp, you're great, carry on. If you get that furry feeling, and it's happened fairly quickly after you've done the fruit or whatever, it's usually a fairly good indication you've got an aggressive bacteria in your mouth.
Okay, wow.
In that
nice
case,
test.
I would go brush your teeth after every meal in that case, because you're going to find it's going to have an impact on your general health and your oral health. Is there halitosis, for example? Well, two factors. One, you've probably got the bacteria, but more importantly, you're probably mouth breathing. So you'd have to address that. Look at your mouth breathing while you're breathing through the night, then you wake up with that dragon breath. So it's kind of within, those are how many times a day do I brush? Parents will always ask, how many times must I brush my child's teeth? Well, it depends. If they've got the bug, definitely after every meal, if it's possible. If not, then at least try to rinse with water. If you like out at a restaurant or whatever and swallow the water, you won't die, you'll be fine. So that would be my story. Aquaflossing every night, oil pulling, life, maybe every third night, every second night if I can, not every night. It's I don't think you should be oil pulling every night either. So yeah,
is there a science to oil
Yeah.
pulling, or just tell us a little bit about the research and the benefits, because I think that would be important for the listeners.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people know that from the base of your feet you can detox, right? That's why they go to reflexologists. That's why people are buying these fabulous like pads and all sorts of things that suck up all the toxins from your body. Well, your gums are pretty much exactly the same situation. So you can detox and clean out through your gums. So the idea of oil pulling is to take, if you're an adult, a tablespoon, if you're a child, a teaspoon, a spoon of coconut oil. Some people also use olive oil. Some people use sesame seed oil. I personally think coconut oil is the better one. And then the whole idea is to like suck it through your teeth. So like a sucking noise. And it's all about how long you do it. So it's about doing it for 15 to 20 minutes. So I call it the Big Bang Theory. So you switch on Big Bang Theory and then you oil pull for the entire program, because then you forget you've got it in your mouth, and then you're done. You make sure you spit it out, because usually you'll see when you spit it out, never mind how good you are at brushing it, aquaflossing, it always looks pretty scary. So yeah, I think that's the art of, I mean, it's nothing. It's more a texture thing. A lot of people complain about they don't like the texture, and the fact that there isn't a taste or a smell. So that's why I say use essential oils to fix that for yourself.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about where people can connect with you. It's been an incredible show of value and content, and we're going to slice and dice this and get it out there as much as we can. But where can people connect with you? Where can they learn from you? And tell us about the future of Dr. Maria. Where is she going? What is she studying? Where is she going to upskill herself again?
All right. So first of all, to connect with me, I have a few websites. So there's the academy, the www.saabp.co.za. So that's the South African Academy of Biological Practitioners. Then more pediatric orientated, I have Sacred Parenting. So it's sacred/parenting.co.za. And that's all about workshops that I do with moms, expecting moms in particular, because I think it's so amazing when somebody's pregnant to be able to have the entire future of their child, in the palm of their hands, and to be able to understand not only the impact of what they eat and drink is going to have on their baby, but you know, that's what I call the soul contract, that sacred contract that we have with our child on maybe a spiritual level. So I love doing those workshops. So that's sacred parenting. And then I have this sacred space, or the sacred space.com, and that's all about pretty much the almost like the life coaching, functional medicine side of my practice, just looking at how everything's connected, mind, body, spirit, looking at, you know, supplementation, looking at diets, lifestyle, hormones, very, very important, sleep, very, very important. As a Mediterranean, zero, nobody sleeps. It's always a problem. So, and then I also have We Are Human, which is basically a whole lot of doctors that have come together that kind of, I call it, have the old doctor values. They have the experience, but we genuinely, as a group of doctors, care about our patients. We need to get you on there.
Yeah,
and just, you know, work as a team when it comes to any diagnosis of a patient, so that everything is tackled and the patient feels very supported. So yeah, that's how they can get hold of me. Otherwise, email wise, just Dr. Maria at healyourlife.co.za. So that's me.
Tell us about your future. Where you're going? What are you thinking?
My future. Okay. So for me, it's all about constantly learning, and always about combining ancient wisdom with, you know, the latest techniques and what's happening. So on the cards, I've applied to do naturopathy next year, which I'm really excited about. So kind of just continuing on what I'm doing, and implementing more and more of that into my practice. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I think there's a lot of projects that I'm constantly involved with, or workshops and stuff, but I think with, you know, it's kind of life's journey while we're here, you know, to learn, to grow, to transform. So yeah, that's what it's all about.
Give us your final words and message to the audience out there and the viewers that you'd like them to take home, that they can possibly implement today or tomorrow, something that, you know, they can sort of attribute to Dr. Maria, who I must say, been personally touched by just your passion and your zeal and your warmth and just your willingness to transform people's lives. And it's just wonderful to see.
I think if there's anything I'm going to, you know, would like people to take home, is that at the end of the day, you know, we're responsible for our health. You know, we're accountable and responsible for it. And there's a tendency in this day and age to self-sabotage and not to take care of ourselves, and you know, to push it to the end, you know, push, and it's all adrenaline, and then the other extreme, all the martyrs. And I think it really comes down to looking after yourself as a whole. You know, look after your oral hygiene, trust your intuition. You know, if it doesn't feel right, just because the dentist or the doctor said so, doesn't make them God. So follow that, do your research, and just be happy. And I think gratitude. I think that would be the biggest thing. Yeah, gratitude.
Fantastic. Well, we declare favor and blessing over you, that you would fly in the calling and purpose that you have. I see a lady who lives out her purpose, who just enjoys life, and really a calling that's very, very special. So we wish you well. We want to blow wind in your sails, and glad that we've connected, and we can hopefully reconnect and help a lot of people, because the word doctor, as my community knows, comes from the Latin docere, which means teacher. So we have a huge emphasis on teaching, on education, on, you know, just connecting people to others that can really offer value in their health and their wellness. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.